Hello, this is Aaron Saft with the Runningpains podcast. I have a good friend and strength coach, endurance coach. She coaches cyclists and runners and all sorts of folks to crazy distances right across America and just some amazing events. Her name is Kellie Moylan. She works with Moylan Training. I'll have her information in the show notes. We are going to talk strength training today. Talk about some myths and some truths and some simple ways to get it done. You know, it doesn't have to be a lot of stuff, as Kellie talks about. So, I just hope you really take something away from this conversation and it motivates you to add a little bit of strength training to your program because it can help you running. So, here is my interview with Kellie Moylan. All right. As I said in the introduction, I am here with Kellie Moylan. That's Coach Kellie Moylan. Kellie, how are you today?
I'm doing great. How are you?
I'm doing
Thanks
quite
for
well.
having me on.
I'm happy to have you here. I don't know why it's taking me so long to think about having you on, but I'm glad we're here.
I appreciate it.
So Kellie and I have a history. Kellie was my strength coach. Kellie, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself and your background?
Hey, everybody. I've got a background of endurance sports, starting with cycling in my 20s. And then that spread into triathlons for me, which eventually led me to mountain biking, which is where I fell in love with really a sport that I stayed with and put a lot of time and effort into. I did the 4 years of the Norba circuit around the country. When they had the Norba was National Off-Road Bicycle Association. It's just all USA Cycling now. And I did that. I raced all around the country for 4 years and then did cyclocross and eventually started getting more just into running for time reasons and started doing marathons actually when I was in my 40s. And I haven't done a lot of marathons, but I've done some. And then I went into doing some ultra running. And while all this time I would lift weights, and I've been lifting weights since I was 17. So through the years, I was taught so many different methodologies with weightlifting. There's a lot of information out there with weightlifting. And I was introduced to the sport of Olympic style weightlifting, which is a clean and jerk and snatch in 2005. And I dabbled around in that for a while and then eventually got to the point where I hired a coach 4 years ago and I dropped all the endurance stuff and wanted to learn just about weightlifting as a sport. And I've been doing it ever since because I just fell in love with the sport and a little older now. So I wanted to focus on not getting slower, but getting faster, which is what brings me here.
Very good.
Kind of a nutshell how I kind of got to this point.
And you do coach endurance athletes. And as I said, you coach strength training as well. Is that correct?
That is correct. Strength training for endurance athletes is something I'm super passionate about because through the years with cycling, the thing that was said all the time was cycling is like mixing oil and water, and it's so untrue. It is if you do it improperly, but I've learned what's been really cool about learning and having a coach teach me in weightlifting. I've learned so much more than I thought that I knew, but I did not know. And it really dialed me back a little bit. And I've, instead of pushing for people to do clean and jerks and things, I've just dumbed it down a little bit, if you will, and made it so that it was something that an endurance athlete can actually get stronger without a lot of time involved. And with a program that isn't going to confuse them. It's just a matter of committing to it and doing it.
Right. And so, let's start there because a lot of people, they worry about, the extra time it may take to do something. So, for instance, runners, they're just happy to get their run in, but, and we'll talk about the benefits here in a bit, but what kind of time commitment are we talking about just to, reap minimal benefits? What are we looking at per week?
If I have a lot to say about this, but let's keep it simple. If commitment is commitment, okay, and if an endurance athlete, and I don't, there is no such thing as specificity for runners or cyclists. It's not a specificity in strength unless you are a track athlete. Once you're an endurance athlete, you're an endurance athlete. Doesn't matter if you're a cyclist or a runner. Strength is strength. Okay. Know that. So time commitment, if you put 2 hours, 2 sessions a week, and I have a team of 4 guys that I just took on out of Wisconsin to do the Race Across America. And they're all lifting weights for me. And it's, it feels different to them, but they're actually doing it. And it makes me so happy. So I'm very aware of the fact that these guys all have families. They all burn the candle at both ends. And I try to keep it so that it's as simple as possible. So I'm just going to keep it at 3 exercises, 1 session, and a few accessory works, with accessory things being core, back, single leg RDLs, think that type of thing. I call those accessories.
Yes.
So maybe an hour twice a week, maybe an hour and a half twice a week, if you really want to try and focus on getting stronger.
Right on.
That's fair.
Yeah. So we'll talk about kind of how that works too, because I imagine with some of these, as you taught me, form is essential. So we'll talk about that too. But let's go back to the benefits. What type of benefits do we gain from strength training? And you feel free to expound as much as you like.
So what I love are numbers first. Okay. I love numbers. It's hard in this area to do pace chart running because of the fact that we've got hills everywhere. The power, people that are using power now, it's kind of cool actually on running, and it's consistent, and it actually, there's nothing that is better than power. I always thought when I first heard about running and power, it didn't make sense to me, but I think from what I've seen so far that the power numbers are actually coming across pretty consistently. I have not used it, so I can't go too far down that path and conversation, but I like numbers, and strength gives you a measurable thing. And if you focus on your best set of 3 repetition front squats in a period of 4 weeks, and each week you add just enough, because you always want to leave a little bit of room in the tank. The whole world of the words rep max, they just kind of resonate with people. And it's like, I can't do rep maxes. It just means to failure to people, but it doesn't mean that. A rep max is your best set for today. Okay. And it doesn't mean in a compromised fashion. So if you have yourself a 4-week block and you do the same 3 exercises on day 1 and the same 3 exercises on day 2, and each time you lift, you leave a little bit room in the tank, you're going to adapt to that. And on the 4th week, you can give it your best shot. Now you've got a number. You can change it. We can change it up a little bit the following 4 weeks, or just keep it the same. So you keep working on, I'll change it up in the way of a 5 rep or a 3 rep thing to see where they're at with the best of that. And then I'll play. I like to teach a little bit more movement than just the front squat. So if the athlete is ready to learn how to do something like a pull, where you're just kind of extending and a little bit like a deadlift, but you're putting a little bit more muscle into it and movement into it, you'll get a little bit more power benefit from that. So numbers are where it's at, and measuring your strength is strength. If you're stronger in the gym, you're going to be stronger on a run.
Right, which in turn will help with recovery too, does it not?
Absolutely. Yeah, absolutely.
Right on. So you talked about just having 3 basic exercises that you have your cyclists doing. When we talk about strength training, what kind of equipment are we talking about? Is this something that they need a gym for, or they could do at home? And if they do it at home, what does that look like?
I really encourage people to get their own bar. I've got a couple of kids I just started working with, and you can get a 10 kilogram bar or a 15 kilogram bar and a couple of plates. Let me show you. Across the Rogue's really gotten it so that they've made stuff more affordable. This is just a 2.5 kilogram plate. And this and a bar, you can do so much with it. And then you can just get small fractional plates to add weight to that. If you're a stronger athlete, you're going to need a little bit more than that, but it's a good starting point because strength training to me is about movement first. It's movement first, strength second. It doesn't do you any good to do a deadlift with the wrong type of movement. So I teach movement and I tell people that I want you to move properly. And when I can, the guys are always like, why is this so important to me? Doing a snatch grip deadlift. I'm like, because you're gonna move differently. You're gonna learn to push the floor away from you, and you're gonna learn to have a strength that gives you more strength at the bottom of a front squat or the top of a deadlift, so that you're getting hip extension and full range of motion in a front squat, which will ultimately really help you in climbing on the run.
Is this something that could be replicated with like a kettlebell, that type of movement?
Yeah, the kettlebell's fine. It's just that you're going to be limited to how much you can hold here. And here's the thing. The things that I typically see is don't get caught up in doing the same thing all the time. I mean, you're not really going to get stronger doing that. You'll get better, but I'd like to take an athlete to the point that they're actually doing stronger. I could change somebody's life doing that. Their whole outlook's going to change. So the kettlebell is okay if you can't get into a front squat position because you don't have the range of motion in your shoulders or your wrists. But I would encourage an athlete to learn how to do a front squat. Start with a kettlebell, but you can front squat a lot more than you're going to end up. 50-pound kettlebell is hard to hold.
Yes.
You know what I mean? So you gotta pick it up, and you gotta get it in your arms. So you're limited a little bit by that.
Sure. And when you mean don't always do the same thing, are you referring to don't always do like a front squat? And
no, don't always do, like, if all you have is a 25-pound kettlebell and you do front squats, it's better than nothing.
Sure.
But if you want to make gains by more weight.
More weight. Oh, okay.
Good movement. Gotcha. Yes.
Okay.
Yeah.
So same movement, more weight is what you're saying.
Yes.
Yeah.
Okay. Yeah. Ultimately, gotcha. over time.
Okay.
Yeah.
And the folks that can't see Kelly, when she had the plate, she had a Rogue Fitness plate that goes on the bar. I'll put those in the show notes so that
okay.
folks, because the audio people won't be able to to see that.
Sorry.
No, that's okay. That's okay. Just, got to remember, some people are listening audio, so. But yeah, so okay, so you referenced earlier, an endurance athlete is it doesn't matter which discipline, being cycling or running, and that holds true within running as well. So far as like, let's say like a marathon or sub-marathoner versus a ultra marathoner, they're working the same way?
Absolutely.
Yeah. Okay.
Flat or hills. Yeah.
Okay. And yeah, flat or hills. That was my next question. And obviously we're working on power. Do you ever bring anything in like plyometrically, maybe med balls or anything like that?
I don't. Here's the thing, with the endurance athletes, the other thing is they want to turn everything into an endurance event. So I typically have to slow down the front squats because they're like 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And I'm like, just do one at a time. So I try to keep it just with strength. If somebody has time and they want to do med balls, that would be an accessory thing or a warm-up thing, most likely with me. You go back to the time crunch thing and what's the most effective thing? And I'm going to put you on a front squat, a deadlift, and a push press, assuming I've gotten a healthy individual.
Right. So repeat that again. Front squat, push press, deadlift.
Keep it simple.
Right. Can you explain a little bit out of, you selected those three and you're saying you're going to get the most bang for your buck out of those. Can you explain what it is that, we're getting the most out of those? What are we activating, and, what's getting worked, and why those three?
Front squat is front side. So you're going to get more quadriceps on that. I like a full range of motion. I try to get a full range of motion. I try to make sure the athlete's got neutral spine and can squat all the way down, and without compromise to the back, which is typically where the compromise happens on a squat. That's pretty much it. I mean, if somebody's got something going on with their hip, they might turn in or out a little bit, but that's usually that is usually the main thing, making sure their spine is right, and that they're not leaning forward from the bottom once they start standing up. But one of the things that you'll find when you do a front squat, full range of motion, and you can do it, let's say you can do it, is you end up working part of your quadriceps upper part towards the hips like you've never felt before. It will make you much stronger on your climb, especially on the climbs. That's where ultra runners, I'll take if I had an athlete who gave me the choice of doing climb intervals or strength training, I would push them into strength training. Drop the climbing repeats. Do your strength training, because here's my reason with that. Aerobically, you're going to go up a hill, you're going to run up a hill, and you're going to be limited by your aerobic capacity. Okay. In the gym, you're working on strength. Strength is strength. So that strength carries over to a hill. Your aerobic capacity is going to be what it's going to be. And you can work that end of your aerobic engine on the flats effectively, way more effectively with leg work, with leg speed. And you add strength training to that, you're gonna see yourself going up the hill faster. My very last 25-mile run was that happened for me.
Nice. So. And the push press?
Push press is just a good, it's just a good shoulder exercise. It gives you, once you get it overhead, you're going to brace tight. It's a good shoulder, core, and it's really it's a drive from the legs. Everything is about movement, and everything is about being driven from the legs. It's just another piece of body awareness as well. The runners they're so sagittal plane, boom, everything is one direction. That's why they end up getting injured a lot. So this just takes them into a different place of get strong. Don't worry about getting big, just get strong. And when you have a stronger upper body and you're an ultra runner, you're going to do better. Right. You'll do better.
And then the deadlift.
The deadlift is backside. So hamstrings, glutes. That's all you guys hear when you go to a PT. Strengthen your glutes, The deadlift. So what I do with that, I've got blocks in my gym. So sometimes I need to raise the floor for people because they're too long. They're longer, or they're taller people don't go all the way down on a deadlift, or they're maybe a little shy because they've had a back injury. So when I have somebody who's got a little bit of fear in them, I make it so that the floor is much closer to them so they can actually just learn the movement. It's a hip hinge movement with a little bit of bend in the knee. And here's where I really teach about movement, because this is a place where people make a lot of mistakes. So good posterior chain exercise.
You speak how form is essential. Can you, kind of go over how that works, especially if the client is, like you said, your team is out of state? How does that work?
I have a bunch of people, actually. I have a private Facebook group where people, I write programs out. I'll write a 4-week program out for them, and they will video themselves and upload it into this private group. And then I review all of their lifts, and I help them with that. I also, along with them, when I'm teaching them a new movement, I'll do a live Zoom call, and anybody that wants to join and wants to lift with me, they lift with me.
Nice.
That's kind of fun, actually. The pandemic did that for me.
Yep. It's changed a lot. That's for sure.
Yeah.
And you mentioned how, the session would take about an hour. So, with 3 exercises here, and then you said some ancillary, perhaps core exercises and such. Let's talk about, reps and rest, because, like you said, endurance runners like to make everything an endurance activity and just bang, 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 which in lifting, the recovery is super important as well, so that you can maintain form and keep lifting and lift properly. So how does that work?
You mean between sets?
Yeah, exactly. So like you had mentioned earlier that, in your reps, you focus on the rep you're in, do it properly, and then, go to the next rep. So you're moving with purpose, we should say, right?
Yes.
But then after you're done with the set, what does the rest look like? What should recovery look like?
So once what we do is in here is we do like if somebody walks in here and they do we're going to do a workout, I'm going to start them off with some. I have these bands I use. They're called crossover symmetry bands, and I do a lot of shoulder stuff with them to make sure that they're just warmed up with that. Then we'll warm up slowly to their sets. Their sets are, if I'll rate it as heavy. So if they start with a 15 kilogram bar and they know if I know they can go to, let's say, 35 kilograms or 70 pounds, I'll start them with, the 15 kilogram bar, 33 kilogram bar, and then I'll add 5 kilograms. I'll work my way up to that point with sets. Let's say we're striving for 5. 5 is my maximum repetitions in any. There's an occasion where I'll have somebody do more than 5 reps on a squat. It's going to be during the off season though, where we're trying to really build on some volume in the gym. But typically what they're going to see is 5 rep max for reps. Okay. I'll do 3 and 5 reps. So let's say we're going for a best set of 5 and we're on week 4. They would warm up to that set with maybe start off with 5 reps, and then we'll just drop it to 3. And then when we finally get to this, where we're actually doing our sets, we're going to do 3 sets of 5 at 35 kilograms with maybe 2 minutes between each set. Leading up to it, it depends on how heavy it is for you. At least a minute, 2 minutes.
Very good. And, what percent of your max are you usually prescribing? So, in other words, like when we're running, a vast majority of our runs are going to be kind of that conversational, that like, zone 2 to 3 in heart rate. But what are we talking about here for weight? So what percent are we warming up at? What percent are we, trying to work up to get to those 3 sets of 5?
Well, I don't do that. I don't do percentages. I let an athlete decide. I'll look, I have like 5 really big guys that I'm working with right now via the group on my Facebook group. And some of them really like to push hard. So I'm like, I really stress that it's about movement. It's not about weight. So give me your best set with good movement. So it's really that. I don't do percentages until I know what their best set of 3 is. Then, and if I'm in season, if they're in a recovery week on their running program, and they're getting towards an event, I would probably have them do 85% of their best set for a couple of sets going into that. And then a week before their event, I'd have them take off lifting a week before.
Right on. Yeah. So there is kind of a periodization for lifting.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. It starts out so vague because of the fact that somebody comes to me new and hasn't lifted before. And it's just, let me see what they're doing. I know when somebody's getting ready to completely lose form, as you say, but I'm looking for good movement. Once they start doing things wrong, I'm going to pull them. Just say, let's do 3 more sets here and try to keep your chest up, or whatever it is, whatever cue I need to use for them. So that's kind of how I guide that.
Yeah. Let's see. What happens, if an athlete is, if they're feeling a little too tired, like if an athlete is they're in full training, but they're lifting as well. If they're feeling too lethargic from both, should they pull back from both, or should they pull back just from the strength training a little bit, so far as like, how much weight they're doing? How do you adjust something like that?
when an athlete, it comes to me with fatigue, my first question is, what are you eating and how much? Because it's usually that. And then how well are you sleeping? Those two things are super important. It's not necessarily the training they're doing or not doing. It's that. If I feel like they're overtraining in their sport, I see that all of the time. I end up going midline sometimes on people just because they're running so much. And it's like, let's just stay with your strength training. I'd rather see an athlete back off on I'll ask how much mileage they're doing. And if they've got a lot of mileage going on and they're feeling really lethargic from the training, and we identify that, I would probably have them. This is a really hard thing because I'm usually working against another coach with that. And they want their athlete this much volume, but their athletes really, and it gets blamed on strength training. So, we butt heads a little bit with that, but I think, I really think it's something that should be looked at if an athlete is feeling tired, how much training are they doing? And if they backed off maybe one day even on their running and kept their strength training in there, they might find that it feels better. It's so many different situations with that, though. It's hard to say.
Sure. One of the kind of the I guess different ways of training from what you're explaining is HIIT training. I see a lot of athletes that still like to do high intensity interval training with strength training. Does that fit in at all with endurance running or cycling?
I'm so glad you asked that question. I have one of the guys from the Wisconsin team that I'm training, the 4 Race Across America guys. He's a triathlete. He's done like 7 half Ironmans and 3 full Ironmans, something like that, a bunch of stuff. And he did all HIIT training with it. He didn't do any interval training. It was a gift to me to see his files. So I looked at his power files, and he's a good rider, but I had to break the news to him. I said, you're going to need to put this away and I asked him to wear a heart rate monitor for his HIIT training, because oftentimes it's high intensity training. So there's high intensity training and there's metabolic training. Is it really different? I don't really know. It's supposed to be metabolic training is with more like strength training involvement. Okay. HIIT training is more throwing the balls and all kinds of different stuff, rope and everything. If a person is doing that and running and it's going well, I'd say go for it. But if you want to get better, be specific about your sport. Be specific. Your running intervals, and this, your running intervals need to be at a certain place. And they need to be with quality. But if you throw a running interval down on one day and then a HIIT training on another day and then another running, you're gonna wear them out pretty quickly. So for an average person, that stuff came around. The HIIT training came around. CrossFit came around for people that were actually couch potatoes. I was living in Santa Cruz when it first emerged, and it was a couple out there, and it's just turned into this big thing now, and it's been fantastic because CrossFit brought weightlifting alive. They had to shut down the entries into the Worlds 3 years ago in Spain because there were so many women. It was in history more women than men in weightlifting competition at Worlds Masters in Spain. It was pretty cool, actually. So HIIT training, I would steer away from it if you want to be specific to your sport. I'll leave it there. Don't want to bash anyone, though. They're doing a good thing.
Yeah. That's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
The other piece that kind of pops up from time and again is functional movement. And should we be doing things that are more functional, which, some of the lifting that you've suggested here is functional movement. Would you say it's not?
Oh man, there's nothing more functional than a squat. If you could teach a 99-year-old to squat, you're going to do a big favor. They don't need any weight. So yeah, absolutely functional. Yeah.
And, it also, I would imagine that, these movements add to mobility. Can you touch on mobility for a bit? I just had a podcast with Miriam about mobility, but can you touch on how this can?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, if you're strong in a squat and you're strong in a push press and you can learn how to deadlift properly, you're going to find yourself moving everywhere better. I'll go into, I'm going to touch on children for this, actually, because kids don't know how to move. They just move, they're all wiry and they don't have, their joints aren't fully developed. They just move. So bringing a kid into the gym and teaching them how to snatch is probably one of the best things you can do for your kid, because it's movement and it's functional movement, so that's the mobility is everything. And that the weightlifters stretch more than any athlete that I've ever known. So as a runner, I wasn't good about stretching, but every time I go into somebody else's gym, everybody's stretching. So I sit on the floor and I stretch before and after a workout. So that helps.
Yeah, no, absolutely. I think, most of us are, we're awful at the stretching part of it, but does the weightlifting in this manner, does it, I don't want to say, does it replace stretching, or, can it supplement it, I guess?
I think, active range of motion is just that, it's just stretching. I'll do activation as well as stretching. So they're two different things. So activation being, if I just want to do some activation on my glutes, I'll put a band around my knee and kneel on the floor, and I'll just do like a pelvic tilt, which will activate my glutes really well, and also give me a little stretch in my hip flexors, one leg at a time. So that's active stretching right there. Yeah, I really like that. Passive stretching, I'll do it just because it helps me. It helps me. I'll do that. I do it as a warm up before I lift sometimes.
Okay. And do you encourage, your endurance athletes to lift before or after their primary activity?
Usually it's after. I've got one guy, his schedule's really tight. I had a long talk with him yesterday about his lifting, and we're going to try lifting on the same day he's doing intervals, and he's doing some intense intervals right now. So I'm like, I'm not pushing you for this. I typically like the riders are doing their intervals on Tuesday and they're doing a strength day on Wednesday. Okay. So, you can do it the same day. It just might kind of suck. But I don't know. It's everybody's so different with it. And, it depends on what each athlete's really working on. Cause I've got one guy who rides I forget what it's called, elliptical cycle. He's an elliptic biker. Yeah. He's out in Colorado. He's actually ridden 200 miles on that thing. I don't know how he can do it, but he's a big guy and he also likes to lift. So he's just recently started doing the snatch and the clean and jerk for me. And he's doing great with both of them. So he's somebody I'm going to cycle through and go, let's just work on these lifts and just ride easy for a while. Don't worry about hills or intervals or anything like that. So that kind of cycles through as well. But typically the ride and the run and the lifting, they can happen on the same day. Just make sure it's an easy run, but do it after do the lifting after the run.
Okay. Because there's multiple schools of thought as to when someone should lift. I mean, I run 7 days a week, and what day do I put the lifting on? That's that always becomes the conundrum. Do you put it to just make your hard days hard and have your lift after your interval session? Or do you want to be more rested so that you have better form and do it on a normal run day? Or do you just do it on a recovery day? What do you kind of prescribe for that?
I think it will depend on, again, you're a different athlete than a lot of people out there too. And you might be, short run for you might be 6 miles. where that's a long run for somebody else. So, if they've got a long run, I really don't want to tire their legs out before they go on a long run. They're going to more likely trip. They're going to more likely just freaking not feel good, so it's just a thing of an individual. You're not going to performance wise. I don't think you're going to change that much, whether if you're able to, and let's talk power on the bike. Okay. So if you're able to hit your intervals on the bike and you've lifted the day before, well, that's fantastic. You're probably going to feel a lot better if you do your intervals the day before you do your strengthening. So same would go with a runner.
Okay. Same
day or not, it's a individual thing. It's how it feels.
Okay. Yeah. Do you, for runners specifically, do you prescribe like drills of any sort? I guess some people view, sprinting and bounding and like high skips kind of, more of like a plyometric drill. Do you feel that runners should be doing that sort of thing as well?
Absolutely. I would say before every run. I mean, if you're a serious runner, if you're doing any kind of speed work, definitely doing some bounding, skipping, that kind of warm up, knee ups, butt kicks, do some frontal plane stuff. I think that's really good for them. Yeah.
Yeah. Like a dynamic warm up.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
Yes.
Right on. And what is your typical, you had mentioned earlier, that you typically have people warm up prior to the lifting. What does a typical warm up look like? What are some things that people can do to warm up for lifting?
I do, again, you go to the activation. What I do with everyone that comes in here is I have crossover symmetry bands, which are weighted bands, basically, that are really high quality bands. They're not just rubber bands. And I have a series of shoulder exercises I do with them that we'll go through. We'll just do 4 sets of 4 each. And then we'll go through, there's 8 different exercises. We do that. And then we do, if they're going to do front squats, start with the front squats. It's just the warm up is actually the bar. Okay. I have a young kid that comes in, I'll throw on the rowing machine, 5 minutes. There's no need to do more endurance in here. I do all of my warm up within the set of whatever it is that we're doing with lightweight.
And is there a cool down phase as well?
Cool down would be stretching. Yeah, if I can keep them that long, I will do that. It's accessory work, which really gets them sweating a little bit more, and then just some stretching would be a good cool down. Anything
else we should touch on? Did I miss anything that?
I think I love your questions. I think it's a fear-based place with a lot of endurance athletes. I have a guy. Everyone is kind of backwards about it. I get different people. I get a professional cyclist that'll roll through here every once in a while that has a schedule from their coach they want me to help with. And it's oftentimes just way too much. And a lot of times people are in this weird idea of seasonal strength training. Let's talk about that a little bit.
Okay.
Seasonal strength training. They come into me and they've got a whole lot of stuff to do. And I'm baffled by it. I'm like, God, this would kill me to do this. I'm a weightlifter. I'm adapted to lifting, but I would never want that schedule sometimes. I think seasonals, going through a period of 12 to 16 weeks out of a year for strength training does not make sense. Try to make your strength training a year-round activity. Make it part of a training plan, even if you do the same thing all the time. There's so much information out there. Try to keep it simple and stay consistent with your strength training. Find a way or somebody to help you with how to do a front squat, how to do a deadlift, how to do a push press properly. Learn how to do a hip hinge. There's some things that are just essential, I think. And this should be considered essential year round, not seasonal.
Right on.
It's like eating well for 12 weeks.
Yeah, right.
It helps you while you're doing it.
Yep. but not thereafter.
Doesn't do anything for you a year later if you
Yeah.
start eating donuts all day.
Right. Yep.
That kind of thing.
Yeah. Absolutely. Thank you, Kelly. Kelly, how can people find you and reach out to you?
Oh, I've got a website, moylantraining.com. Needs to be updated. You text me, email me, shoot me a question. I'm always available. I'm always around. I'm happy to help anybody that needs help. Or if you just have a question out there, just get started with it. And that might be the biggest thing. How does somebody get started? It's just a matter of stepping into the gym and start with the bar. If you're kind of afraid of it, just start with the bar. Try those 3 things just with the bar. See what I'm talking about, and then ease your way into it a little bit. Don't go crazy on these high rep 10 squats at a time. There's just no need for that, or super heavy on the other end. 1 rep maxes aren't really necessary for runners.
Thank you. Great advice there. Thank you, Kelly. I appreciate you, Kelly, and thank you for your time today.
Thank you so much, Aaron. It's great seeing you.
You too, ma'am. Well, thank you, Kelly, for sharing all of that. Love how simple she made it for us, saying this is really all you need to do. But you have to do it properly. So if you don't know how to do it, it's best just to get some advice, some coaching, just to make sure you're doing it properly so you don't get hurt and that you get the full benefit of the exercise. So don't hesitate to reach out to Kelly with questions. Again, moylantraining.com. I'll have it in the show notes. You can reach out to her. But again, thank you, Kelly. On to everything MR Runningpains related. Man, I've been cranking out the YouTube videos each day, kind of doing a training video, just kind of going through some musings that are that are going through my head. Talking about most recently, I met with my dietitian and kind of made a plan as to what I should be doing so far as my eating habits go, and really got a plan. So pretty excited about that. Training's going pretty well, building back, feeling good. On my way to Black Canyon 100K and Bigfoot 200. So you can follow along there on my YouTube channel, Aaron Saft. Like I said, every day I've been uploading a video. Check those out. I'm recording here on November 17th. Actually, November 16th, excuse me. And today's video, November 16th, which is day 23, I ran into some bears. It was pretty cool. Thankfully, they just kept running. But I caught them on video, which was neat. I was kind of in the middle of filming, and the bears ran across. And so check that out. It was a cool surprise. Other things, coaching. I do have some availability. I have, people have wound up their seasons. They finished their goal races, and have moved on. So if you're looking for coaching for 2022, please reach out. Let me know. Love to have a conversation with you and talk about what I do and how I do things. And if it sounds like something you'd want to be a part of, I would love to have you on board. I've had a number of people reach out about Hellbender, which is awesome. And speaking of which, we've got a great episode on the Hellbender podcast releasing this weekend, November 20th. And that will be with coaches Patrick Reagan, Megan Canfield, and Rachel Kelly. So the 4 of us have a chat on some basic ideas, and even if you're not doing Hellbender, it's still a great conversation to kind of glean some wisdom from some great coaches. And Rachel Kelly and I are going to have a spin-off episode, so we're going to post to our social medias and ask if any women have any specific questions they would like us to answer on a podcast. So Rachel is like I said, she's a coach as well. So we'll do our best to go over things. And so that will be an upcoming episode. I'm not sure we'll be able to record before the Thanksgiving holiday, so it might be thereafter. But again, if you have any female-related training questions, you can reach out to one of us, and I'll put Rachel's contact in the show notes, or post to our social media if you're comfortable with the question, or you can message, private message us. My contact is on my website, mrrunningpains.com. So if you'd like to reach out, you can do so there. So awesome. The shoe scholarship is still available. So if you or someone is in need of a pair of shoes, and financially they just don't have the money, or you don't have the money, please feel free to reach out to me. I'd love to help out. I'd like to thank Martin Thorne for coming on board. Patreon, he supported with a monthly donation, which is super helpful in this endeavor, and I really appreciate everybody doing that. Like I said, I'm really trying to create this fund to help folks out through Patreon. So help me help others is the message there. If you can donate financially through Patreon, I sincerely appreciate that. If you can't, by sharing these episodes, leaving a review, any of those things, liking the podcast, all of that stuff, it really does go a long way, because it helps other people find it, other people listen to it, and perhaps they can support it. So if you can't support it financially, not a big deal, but if you could share it, that way maybe we can help some other folks. So thank you for that. And with Thanksgiving coming up, we are doing a group run. We have an annual tradition that I started a few years back, running in Turkey Pen on Thanksgiving Day. So, if you're interested in the area in Western North Carolina, on Thanksgiving morning, 8 a.m., we'll be out at the Turkey Pen trailhead. So I hope you can join us. Other things, let's see. My goodness, what else is going on? Well, I think that's about it. Like I said, I'm just busy with the YouTube, but it's been fun, really kind of digging deep and assessing and kind of getting things out. I feel a lot better about where I'm at, because I have a plan for kind of getting down to race weight, healthy, and it's a good time to be alive. I'm looking forward to Thanksgiving, as I'm sure many people are. And I hope your training goes well. And like I said, if you need to have a conversation about coaching or know somebody that could be interested, please pass them along. I sincerely appreciate it. That's how I make my living as a coach. So thank you guys. Thanks for listening. Next episode will come out on Thanksgiving Day. As I said, I'm not sure if I'll have Rachel on that episode or if we'll be doing something else, but whatever it is, it'll be about running. And I hope everybody has a great week. Take care of yourselves, stay safe, and keep running, my friends.